So I am super excited. I couldn't wait to get home from work today because today Thor is finally going to be getting a new bumper.
I'm Kevin.
And I'm Stacy.
And we love to do projects and different things we can do ourselves.
For a couple of reasons. One, because we just enjoy it. And two, because we love to save money.
And that allows us to be free.
I don't like the bumper. It needs a new bumper and it needs a winch. So I'm really excited because we got one and we are gonna put it on today. I use the term we loosely because I'm gonna record and hand tools to Kevin while he puts it on. So I better go change my clothes and get ready so that we can get the bumper on Thor. So excited.
Okay, Thor is a 2021 Rubicon Extreme Recon package, and as you can see, the bumper is not extreme. So we purchased an EAG full width front bumper from Amazon. We decided to go with the Badlands Apex 12,000 pound winch with synthetic rope from Harbor Freight. We put this winch on Roxy and it performed very well out in the field. As you can see, we got stuck pretty bad pushing a lot of dirt and it got us out. The Apex was rated as high as winches costing 3 times as much.
Overall, the whole project cost $1,250.
If we would have had somebody else do it, the approximate cost would have been $2,000.
So we saved $750.
Okay, so we're ready to start and I'm again really excited. So the first step is going to be to get rid of the old ugly plastic bumper.
We're going to try to remove this little backing piece first and then work our way around. So we are going to try to lift out the center and then pull the pin out completely. That's what it looks like, and we're going to save those. And there's a series of these along the back. Okay, so we've got that piece removed. The next part we're going to remove is try to get the fog lights unhooked. So it's got a series more of those little pins holding in some backing pieces. So we're going to try to get that. The regular one. What I'm going to do next is I saw a series more of these underneath for the skid plate. So I'm going to go ahead and pull all those as well before we get going.
And just as a reminder, because I did watch this video as well, you're supposed to take the 2 screws off of the skid plate before you can get that other stuff off. Did you know that, Kevin?
Yes, I did.
He didn't know that until I just told him.
Yeah, I looked up at the same time. An 8mm bolt. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to remove that.
There are 2 of those bolts on the skid plate that you have to remove, one on either side.
So now I'm going to remove some pins, the plastic push pins that are across the bottom that will release this bottom piece. Okay, once you get all those pins out, then this little plastic skid plate, and I guess you got to get all of them. I got all but the last one. Okay, the next step is to take off this little metal plate that's here. And I'm going to use a 16mm socket to okay. That's your little handy dandy metal piece. Oh, yeah. Alright, so this piece back behind here that covers the fog lamps, I thought it was going to pop off with the other piece, but it's not. There's one, I believe it's an 8mm socket, I'm going to find out, that will remove that bolt. So I've removed that. That's given me access to the
to the back of the fog lamp, and in just a minute I am going to, well, I guess I'll just pull that right out. You just have to push that little button on there and it comes right out. Alright, you just push on the end of this and it's a little stiff and you get it out. And then there's some wiring that goes in behind here. Trying to get everything detached so that when I go to take the bumper off, you know, bumper's not super heavy, but it's heavy enough. I don't want to be pulling it off and have a bunch of wires dangling.
So now there are 4 bolts behind the bumper that have to be removed, and once those 4 bolts come out, we will be able to take the bumper off.
Okay, for the outer ones, I can fit my little stubby impact wrench in here. It's not a huge impact wrench, but it's enough, I think, to break these free. So, a couple of these bolts you have to do with your ratchet, and they're not pleasant because it takes a long time. Now we've got them all unhooked, we should be able to each grab a side of the bumper, slide it off, and set it onto this little rolly thing here.
Ta-da! So we've decided to put the winch on first. However, we realized we needed to do the fog lights.
In order to get the fog lights out, with the wiring harness that we're going to need, we're going to take this metal plate out of the inside. I think if we take that out, that's going to reveal the wiring harness all the way across, because we're going to have to use it to put the stuff in here. It comes with an adapter for like a JK instead of a JL, but it doesn't come with a wiring harness built in for a JL already. Alright, so we got to remove the little wiring harness from this little metal piece so we can pull it out without it grabbing onto it. Okay, alright.
So we still haven't gotten to the wiring harness yet, so now we're having to take all of these off so we can get this next piece of plastic off.
We're going to remove all these screws here to take the plastic cover off of the remaining piece. Hopefully my helper will pick up all these screws so that we don't get a flat tire.
I don't know who his helper is, but hopefully someone will show up.
Alright, I'm going to go through and remove all these little clips that pinch in here that hold the wiring harness onto this. The wiring harness has been removed. Now what I need to do is take out the bolts that hold in the fog lamp. So I'm just going to remove those. Alright, so these pop out. And we're going to see if they'll pop right into the next one. I think these are actually going to work just like that. I'm going to run this wiring harness so it's tucked in nice and neat and different things like that, because we will have the winch in here as well. The other piece is I need to look and see what kind of pathway that I'm going to run the power for the winch up underneath, because I have to go to the battery and I have to put a disconnect there. I really would have liked to hook it to the aux switches, but to do that you've got to buy some additional parts for like $100 and whatnot, and it's just in the end I don't think it's really worth it. So I'm going to hook it up the traditional way and make sure that I'll be set up that way. Alright, because we took this out of the bumper and pretty much took the entire bumper apart, they had a supplied flange in with this bumper, but this one lines up on its own. It's already attached, so there's really no sense in taking it apart. So I'm just going to place that in with the adjuster down in the far corner so I can still adjust it. And then I'm going to pop these little bolts in, and these bolts have a little flange nut that will go on the back. I'm just going to pop a few of them in here to hold it in place, and then I'll start putting some nuts on the back. And tighten those up by hand.
And then I'll put a little box wrench on there with a screwdriver and tighten them down the rest of the way.
And then of course we'll do the same thing on the other side.
We went and got some little adhesive squares that will allow you to zip tie a wire. You stick them on and you can put your wire across and zip tie it to it. And we're going to do that across there so it doesn't get caught in the winch. These work really well. I've used them underneath my camper before for running LED lights. And to prepare the surface, I'm going to take a little bit of acetone, put it on a rag and wipe the places where I'm going to place these behind the bumper just to make sure it's free of oil and different contaminants that might keep it from sticking. I'm trimming off the little plugs with zip ties around the wire so that they're not in the way while I put them into the new zip tie them into the new adhesive squares. With these adhesive squares, you can see the way the wire will run across the top, and then there's little slots for your zip tie to go through, and then you can zip tie it down. I'm leaving them loose right now while I get all of them in place. That way if there's any errors, it's not as hard to cut it out or move something as I go along. We're going to mount the winch faceplate first to the front of the bumper. So with that, it comes with a hex head screw and a washer, and then we'll put on a lock washer and nut on the back. And then I am using a 8mm hex head and a 19mm socket.
So now we are going to
set
the winch on the bumper.
With this winch, they've got little holes that you actually slide the nuts into, and which makes it kind of interesting when you're trying to do it on the little bench that we're doing it on here. And if you'll hold that, try to get that one down there. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to screw it in from the bottom. Okay, the next thing we're doing is we're adding the little light bar that goes on top of the bumper. They give you a little rubber pad for in between that lines up with the holes. Alright, now we're going to try to put the bumper on to here. It's going to be a lot harder now that we have the winch on here. It's going to be a lot heavier, so we're going to kind of scooch this black plastic back. One other thing I did is I ran a metal cable down through where I want this wire to go back up through. So hopefully I can fish that back up through the area that I want it without having to take the grill and everything off. So first thing we're going to do is just kind of scooch this box back a little bit. Just kind of get it closer. Hold it.
So now we are going to go ahead and bolt it in.
All right, well, we're back again in the morning because it got a little late last night and it's hard to see. So with the hitch comes a ground wire, but it's actually about 3 inches too short to go to the actual frame. So they give you an additional piece that you can splice in. So I'm going to need to cut this off, splice this wire. They actually give you a connector with a heat shrinking sleeve on it. First thing I'm going to do though is go down and see how much of this wire I need to where I want to attach it to the frame, and then I'm going to splice that in, and then all I have left to do, we ran the wires yesterday up for the battery. Then we'll connect those to the battery and we should be in business. So first thing I'm going to do is get back under here and see how much of this cable I need, get it marked, and that way I can splice it in. I've crimped these wires together. Now I'm going to do the heat shield with the heat gun. I grabbed a pan from inside the house. That's a plastic grill. There's a lot of plastic stuff here. I don't really want to melt it, so I'm going to have that pan in the way to keep it from melting it. All right, well, we got everything hooked up. Everything's working great, and you know, doing stuff yourself sometimes can be challenging. Okay, I need to give a little update / confession on the install of the winch. Crazy, I've actually done it before. I actually did the same winch on my other Jeep. However, I was in a hurry and not paying attention. I wired some things wrong, which I don't know how, because it's a negative to the negative and a positive to the switch and then to the positive. But nonetheless, I screwed it up and I fried the battery in Thor. So, you know, being free is all about saving money. But sometimes you're going to make mistakes, and you know, even though I've done things before, I'm certainly not an expert by any means, but there are times when you do make mistakes, and I made a big one and it cost me about 175 bucks for a new battery. So I still came out on top for how much I saved doing the project myself, but my advice on this is slow down, look at the directions. Just because you've done it before doesn't mean that you're the expert from memory. You got to look at things and just take your time, and that's what I should have done. And I will do that in the future, which will allow me to be more free.
Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe and like it. Also, you can follow us on Instagram at BeFreeBenson, and the reason we do all this DIY is so that we can take cool adventures and we're able to save some money. So check out our YouTube channel with our adventures at BeFreeBenson Adventures.